Justice Thomas is back in the news. Oh no, another ProPublica report has dropped, and it looks like, oh yeah, he has raised money and helped raise money for the Koch Network and the Koch brothers. So it looks like the circumstances of Justice's role at Justice Thomas's role in the lead donor event organized by a powerful right-wing organization renewed questions about his ethics practices, particularly given that the Koch Network has brought several cases before the Supreme Court. One was in 2021 and shielded charities in California from a requirement to report the identities of their major donors. Easy sort of tax write-off for wealthy people, as we know. A spokesperson, however, for Justice Thomas said, this is Gretchen Reiter, said that Justice Thomas had only attended on those 2 occasions. He was invited first in 2008 to promote his memoir, My Grandfather's Son, she said, and then to deliver remarks at a small dinner in 2018. She declined to comment on what Mr. Thomas discussed or who was in attendance. Again, it's not hard to imagine what he said or why he said it. These are still fundraisers. These are still events. This is still the same toxic corporate soup that Clarence Thomas is right in the middle of. He is like the bouillon of the soup in DC, of the swamp. Clarence Thomas is the bouillon. Obviously, the Koch Network has often turned to its annual summit as a prime venue to unveil big policy goals and notable political contributions. Attendees mingle with representatives of the Koch Network, which include powerful libertarian conservative political advocacy groups, Americans for Prosperity Action. So it's the same stuff. It's please go easy on corporations, please go easy on the rich, and please make it harder to be a worker and or person of color who wants to vote in this, or a woman. Do all those things for us. And looks like they might have get what they paid for in Clarence Thomas, because there's gonna be another case heard before them in the next session that could pare back the regulatory power of administrative agencies. Ooh, a long-held goal of the conservative legal movement. At issue is a 1984 precedent known as the Chevron Doctrine, which requires courts to defer to administrative agencies' interpretations of federal statutes. The Koch Network's lawyers and advocacy groups within the Koch Network have challenged the validity of the statute on various fronts. So if the court does overturn or limits the Chevron precedent, it would become easier for business owners to challenge regulations across the economy. Those include rules aimed at ensuring that the air and water are clean, that food, drugs, cars, consumer products are safe, and that financial firms do not take on too much risk. So again, all they want is basically the ability to say, if you cost me money, I can sue you in court. And I don't have to actually adhere to any of your regulations, because money is primordial, money comes first. That's all they want, that's all they've ever wanted, and they might get it thanks to, Clarence Thomas being at these donor events, which I'm gonna get to what Justice Kagan said, but again, Senator Turner, the entire, when does it stop with him? And of course, you're just waiting for the Koch's name to drop. We were just waiting for it to be like, oh yeah, and the Koch brothers. Because it's every single dark money entity, from Leonard Leo to, like the DeVosses, to any billionaire that wants to get their finger in the DC pot, like Clarence Thomas will help them get it. But thoughts on this? It was just 2 events, it was only 2.
It's not just him. This is an extraordinary display of pay to play. It's a constant reminder of what we mean when we say the system is rigged and it is corrupt and big money interests corrupted, and they get to buy these politicians, and the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, is not above reproach, unfortunately. This is what we mean when we say the owner donors.
Yeah.
They own these people and they move and they operate on their behalf without fear of anything, especially if you are in the United States Supreme Court justice, because you have a lifetime appointment. But it doesn't stop. These similar actions are happening in the United States Congress, in both chambers. Hello, Bob Menendez and others.
Yeah.
But Clarence Thomas is just one example. Justice Thomas is just one example of why
he is.
the
But
system,
he's a big example.
Yeah, No, and most likely, unless the United States Supreme Court wants to try to redeem itself, everything that you just laid out is going to happen, because God forbid we have regulations on corporations to ensure that our air, our water, our food is clean. God forbid we have any protections. They are really, Francesca, this is laissez-faire government. This is really what these corporate powers want.
Yeah, and as we've seen from Justice Sam Alito, they are incredibly fragile and incredibly allergic to any kind of code of conduct or ethics imposed on them. Oh my God, how could you? You don't trust me, even though I go fly fishing with billionaires and then rule on cases that those same billionaires bring before my court? How could you not trust me?
There's no connection there, Francesca. What are you making of this? You're just making up stuff.
It's wild. It is the amount. It's just wild, the amount of corruption, right? Like, again, talk about making Bob Menendez being small time, which is what Trump called him. Alito and Thomas, to me, make Menendez look very small time, because these guys are at the helm of power. And another person who is at the helm of power is Justice Kagan, who at Notre Dame Law School was asked about maybe a code of conduct for Supreme Court justices. And this is what she had to say.
But of course, what we could do is just adapt the code of conduct that the other court systems have in order to reflect those slight or certain differences. And I think it would be a good thing for the court to do that. It would, help in our own compliance with the rules, and it would, I think, go far in persuading other people that we were adhering to the highest standards of conduct.
In other words, apply the same standards and conduct that are applied to other courts, lower courts, different courts, federal courts that are applied to the Supreme Court. Why would it be any different? And in fact, judges across this country have said that it makes us and our job look terrible when the Supreme Court is not adhering to the same ethics standards. And honestly, at this point, Senator, it's mostly just, can you come clean about the things and the gifts that you have received? You just have to disclose them. Clarence Thomas can't even do that. I mean, honestly, this is just like a burning fire in the corner of my brain constantly that occasionally I forget exists. And then I'm like, oh my God, this entire Supreme Court is corrupt. Oh well, what do we do? Can we impeach him? No, I guess not. It's wild.
It's not even a high bar. I mean, what Justice Kagan is laying out there is very low. Look, I'm sure you got higher expectations, Francesca, of your toddler. Yeah. I know I do, of the toddlers in my life, than we do of these people. Not a high bar at all. But how about they just not be unethical to begin with? They know that this stuff is wrong though. But you know why they just keep doing it? Because there are not consequences and repercussions, America. That's why they playing in our face.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.